So we are looking at sales presentations today, how to approach new customers who might be looking at signing up. We'll also talk a little bit about forecasting and how to determine like what you want your salary to be. As we're looking at it, during your first encounter with a member, first thing you always want to do is just basically like introduce yourself and then try to get their name as well. And then a pro tip there is also to try to use their name if and repeat it back to them like as soon as you hear it, like, what was that, John? Pleasure to meet you, John, something like that. It's disarming and also makes sure that you are more likely to remember their name in the future by actually using it. So that's a really like good piece of information right there off the bat. If you're not super comfortable, like if you don't have sort of a go-to like introduction or salutation, like you might want to start working on that and get if you're going to be in a sales environment, get used to like getting comfortable like using people's names. So introduce yourself by name, ask for their name as well, and then let them know that like you're there to like enrich their experience. You can attend to any of their needs. You can help them out. It's like, hey, if you got in trouble with any of the equipment, if you need tips on how to use anything, if there's anything you need to, if there's anything you're gonna need, let me know. That's just a nice thing to like make sure that they are aware of like who you are at the gym and that you're there to kind of enhance their whole experience, right? And then the big thing you want to do, which I always have a hard time with, and one thing that's like a little bit challenging in your first session, try to resist the temptation to educate them. They're not your client and they're kind of aware of that. So you don't really want to dive right into like, let me tell you why this exercise is great, or let me tell you a little bit about your overactive underactive muscles. I'm staring at your posture right now. You don't really want to get into that right away. Like, this is sort of your time to really just make an introduction. And then later on, when you get to know them further, that's where you can kind of launch into the whole trainer speak, which is like, very informative and educational and stuff. So in your first interaction, just be professional and pleasant and non-threatening. That's a really big thing right there. You really don't want to turn somebody off to the idea of having a conversation with you because they think that you're some, sleazy salesperson who's trying to like get them to buy something out of nowhere. So let's see here. Approaching potential sales. Step one. I'm just going to go back right here. Step one. Introduce yourself. Introduce yourself by name, learn their name, and let them know that there we go. I'm trying to think how I would do this on a whiteboard. Normally this works a lot better. It's a whole chart. Then we have step two here. So step two is going to be where now that you've built a little bit of rapport, right? They know who you are, you've maybe had a conversation with them. You can actually maybe pivot the conversation into identifying like what it is like they joined the gym to do. This, by the way, is another thing about like in that first initial session, if you have somebody who like the most common version of that you're going to run into, the most common version of a first introduction with somebody isn't necessarily just going to be you walking the floor and like meeting somebody at random, although that is a big part of what we do and certainly applies to this as well. But a lot of times your first introduction will be somebody who came into the gym, they just signed up for a gym membership, and now they are being introduced to you with the assistance of like somebody from the membership sales team. So like the membership sales team will bring them over and say, hey, this is John. You're gonna go, hi, John. you know, if there's anything you need, let me know. And then pivot the conversation with that other person as well. They're both going to, you and the salesperson are both going to encourage John in this case to use their complementary fitness assessment, right? And so that really gives you an opportunity to like meet with them the second time, right? So a lot of times, like, you're not really trying to like get too in depth about things on that first session. You're really just trying to build rapport and be non-threatening. Step two is where you can kind of break it down a little bit further. So you can say, well, what is it that you're really working on? Like, why did you come to the gym? You know, what are your overall goals, right? And then that can be where you actually conduct a movement assessment. It's like, well, you know, like I came out here because I've been slumping at my desk a lot lately, and I've just been getting some random shoulder pain. And so, yeah, I figured I'd sign up for a gym and, you know, strengthen some of my muscles and stretch things out and, you know, stay a little more active. And it's like, that's really great. Those are really good goals. Well, if you'd like, we can kind of do a movement assessment and figure out like maybe what's going on with your posture that could be causing that shoulder pain. And if we, you know, figure out which muscles are overactive and underactive, I can show you a few stretches that you can do, as well as a few strengthening exercises that are particularly related to, you know, fixing that shoulder pain. And so like that might be something appealing that you tell somebody, right? Like that's you didn't bring it up on that first session. You really kind of dove into it the next time you met somebody. So during your next encounter, what you want to do is, once you have already built rapport, you'll be in a position to offer assistance, right? The next time you see them. So that's going to be identify their goals, conduct an assessment, or correlate their goals to the OPT model. So that's another one. If they say, well, I'm really interested in losing a couple pounds, it's like, oh, okay, great. And it's like, yeah, I really want to like tone up. And it's like, well, what's going to really help you with toning up is, you know, shedding the fat off is going to really help because that's going to reveal all the muscle that you have, but also like building a little bit of muscle is going to make everything pop a little bit better. So like, you know, if you can primarily focus on training for like stabilization, which will burn a lot of calories, and then focus on training for like muscular growth, which will help you like build and look sort of a certain way, and just kind of flip back and forth between those two things, that's a really good way to kind of alter your body composition. And then they're going to go like, I don't really know what that means. They're going to go, I know, okay, I can understand like muscle gains. Like, well, we just train very different. Like when it comes to like writing programs and doing rep ranges and things like that, there's just very different rep ranges that you're going to use for like losing weight versus gaining weight, or versus gaining muscle. And somebody goes, oh, okay. And like it starts to like kind of paint a picture of like what the OPT model is, right? So those are really what you're looking for in your first two sessions. Now, I didn't break them down necessarily just in the sense that like, because here's the thing, a lot of times this will actually all happen in one day, especially in a really high pressure sales environment. You really don't have time to be like, all right, see you tomorrow, and then hopefully get in there again, because if it's busy, you might never see that person again. If it is a super high pressure sales environment, somebody else, some other trainer might come in and talk to them first. Also, your manager might tell you to be more aggressive. So rather than break this down in like first meeting, second meeting, which is how this PowerPoint has it, I broke it down into like step 1 and step 2. You can do step 1 on day 1 and leave it at that, and then you can do step 2 on day 2 if that works for you. But generally, a lot of times, you just want to start by having a little bit of a conversation, introduce yourself, get to know them, be as non-threatening as possible, and then you can pivot the conversation if you need to into identifying their goals and then offering up a fitness assessment. Even if it's just scheduling a fitness assessment, that's another one. I'll actually put that up here. We'll say not. Sorry to mess with anybody's notes. We'll say conduct or schedule an assessment. That'll work. So things you got to avoid, things to not do, things to avoid. This is sort of a big lengthy list, but basically there's a few key phrases that come very naturally to us to say, but they are just the kind of things that kind of set off a red flag in somebody's brain. So they're not really the best phrases to use. So you want to try to avoid challenging your client's beliefs too much. Well, I'm sorry, let me take that very far back. Let me scrub that sentence entirely. It's not that you don't want to challenge your client's beliefs. You want to avoid challenging potential clients' beliefs when they aren't your client yet, and you are trying to, get them interested in training with you. You don't want to be very threatening and challenging. That is to say, like once they become your client, and they think that a Snickers bar is a good example of a post-workout meal because it's got peanuts and protein in it. Now you can challenge your clients thinking they've already signed up for sessions. They are tethered, so you have a good bit of control there. So avoid approaching certain things like avoid challenging a potential clients' beliefs and avoid coming off as judgmental. Those are really key things there. So like these are some phrases that you really do want to kind of stay away from. May I make a suggestion? I see trainers do that all the time. They're walking the gym floor, they just see somebody doing something like, can I show you how to do that? They think it's cute. It's not cute. People hate it. Can I recommend a better way of doing that? Can I show you a different technique? Like the voice trail off thing, by the way, everyone in the world finds annoying. I've seriously never seen that work very well. Just like, oh, you mind if I just get in there real quick? I mean, I get it. Like I do that voice, like, I did that voice yesterday when my roommates were walking around the house trying to figure out where to hang stuff on the walls. Like, like, resist that urge though. It'll drive somebody crazy, and it comes off as super crazy judgmental. Let me show you the right way of doing that. That's a big one. That is not a sentence you want to use. This one is one that I kind of disagree with. Can I help you with that? That is actually not a phrase that comes off as super threatening. Just don't do it in situations where there's nothing wrong. But like one thing that is a great conversation opener, and this is kind of funny, but this is sort of a mistake. I had a conversation about this one time, like a fellow trainer and myself were nerding out over this. We were talking about sales theory for 10 seconds, and I was like, it's always funny. I see some people hanging out. A lot of trainers hang out in the free weights area because that's where we are experts, Like a lot of people hang out near the barbells and the dumbbells and like all the BOSU and all the really cool kind of trainer equipment. And that's great because like we are really good with that. And that stuff's really impressive looking. But in my opinion, the best place to like pick up clients is in the machines section where people kind of know what they're doing, but at the same time, it's got a lot of levers and pulleys, which are often confusing, and people can't find the freaking switch. And they're like, I just want it to be my height. And they like don't know where to pull the lever. And it's like, hey, do you mind if I give you a hand with that? It's right down here, Don't do that actually. I'm in like trail off, squeeze the voice mode. Don't do that. That voice is sets people on edge. But that's a really great way to kind of help someone, right? Like, can I help you with that is okay in certain situations like that. That's one that like I kind of disagree with on this PowerPoint, but these are phrases you'll see in your textbook. And then otherwise, like, what's your goal with that exercise? That comes off as pretty judgmental. What's your goal with that exercise? Again, it's just sort of patronizing. That's really just not the kind of thing you want to ask. Instead, what you want to do is, and this is a really key concept here, is get used to asking open-ended questions. Ask open-ended questions. So open-ended questions are a really important tool that I really recommend like everybody kind of practice and get used to. I always equate it to when I see, like, I'm not like a parent or anything, and my parents and I, we always got along really well. Like the Thompsons are talkers, like we just can't shut up. So we didn't really have this problem, but I do see it in like movies with like a brooding teenager, you know, who's just like come home and they're sitting at dinner and they're just like, oh, I don't want to talk to anybody, I hate the world, you know. That like I always see that in like movies and stuff. And I imagine that's like somewhat what it's like in real life. But and then like parents are always like, I always see it in, you see that scene in a movie where parents are like, how was school today? That's like the classic like scene, and they're like, it was fine. And then like the conversation's over. And I always think every time I see that scene in a movie, I always think that's a classic example of somebody who doesn't know how to open a conversation. You don't want to ask how was something, because that can be answered in one word, like fine. That's a like, and then like inevitably what always happens in that is like the parent then gets all upset and they're like, oh, you never talked to me. And it's like, you didn't ask a good question. It's an interesting like dynamic, and it's a classic like thing that you see sometimes. So that's asking open-ended questions is a really great way to get somebody. You have to give somebody an opportunity to have a conversation, like rather than like how was something, asking like what happened today is something that's like a classic example of like an open-ended question. Give somebody the opportunity to talk. So you know, asking a question that can't be answered in like yes or no versions versus like asking something that like gets somebody to talk is going to invite discussion, and that's really what you're going for here. So not like even something like as small as like you know, what is your goal, that can actually be answered fairly quickly if somebody is like, I want to lose 20 pounds, you know. That's not, I mean, that's, I guess that's semi-open because it does give somebody an opportunity to talk, but it's not that great. But if it's something like, why do you want to do something, throwing like why and what are the two like most powerful tools you've got to create like an open-ended question. They're really great because like it makes somebody think about their motivations, and then like that's what they're going to convey to you. So ask open-ended questions for sure. They are going to engage your customer in conversation, right? That's the idea of open-ended questions here, right? And then this is a really key sentence. And you'll actually recognize, some of you will recognize this sentence when it comes to, because we've talked about open-ended questions before in our exercise psychology class, like when we're trying to get to the root of like what somebody's really trying to achieve. Because a classic thing that people come into the gym is they're like, it's like, what brought you to the gym today? And they're like, I want to lose 20 pounds. And it's like, okay, great. Why do you want to lose 20 pounds? Right. And then all of a sudden they're like, well, you know, I would talk to my doctor and my doctor said that I have like heart problems. And it's like, so your motivation is to improve your health, not to lose 20 pounds. If you lost 20 pounds, that'd be great. Right. Like it can be an excellent byproduct, but we can think of that as like a byproduct of a healthy lifestyle rather than like your true motivation. You're motivated to enhance your health. Right. I know plenty of people who are overweight who are incredibly healthy. I know people who are regular weight and are incredibly unhealthy. It might not be a weight thing. If it happens, that's great, but it sounds like your true motive, like you, doesn't sound like you really care too much about the poundage. What you care about is being healthy. So like that can help us get to like the root cause of our motivations. I wouldn't drill somebody the way I just did, by the way. But like, just kind of trying to highlight what's hopefully going on in your brain when you have that conversation. So this sentence right here, you guys will recognize this from when we talked about it in exercise psychology, but it's literally something that NASM like reused this sentence here. But open-ended questions are great because they help the trainer understand the true motivations of their client, right? That is a big one. And what's funny about that is like, I've seen that question on tests as well, and I think it's in your homework. So that's a good one to throw up in your noggin. So good examples of open-ended questions, right? Why do you want to lose 20 pounds, right? My favorite one here, what's important to you in a training regimen, right? Not even close, not even close. There we go. What's important to you in a training regimen? I love that. Like, what's important to you when it comes to like working out? What are the types of things that you most enjoy about working out? I love asking the question, what do you most enjoy about working out? Because so many people will go, nothing, I hate it, oh my god, it's the worst. Like, they'll often have like a really negative answer, and I love that because like it's an opportunity to kind of like really, they kind of like open up to you as a person and kind of reveal like who they really are at that moment. Like they're in this like very professional, like, I'm here to do this, and all of a sudden it's like, what's your favorite thing about working out? And they're like, oh, nothing. And you're like, and it's just a moment you can both kind of laugh over and build some rapport over. And it's like, I get it. Like, there's parts of like the fitness world that I don't enjoy. You drag me to a spin class, I'm gonna complain the whole time. I hate spinning. I have a bony posterior, man. Like, there's not much cushioning back there. I'm tall and skinny. Like, friggin' spin bikes destroy me. I feel like I'm bruised for the next week. So like I get like the discomfort associated with certain types of working out. And so it's like, all right, that's a good answer. All right, in the past, what's the thing that you've hated the least? I love asking that question because like that's kind of a funny response to that question. And it just kind of breaks down those barriers a little bit more and kind of makes somebody feel a little more comfortable. So that's a really big part of your initial sort of approach to sales, right? Asking those open-ended questions, right? And then the next thing you need to do, so now when it comes to like actually presenting things, you need to create value. And so creating value is arguably the most important thing we're talking about today. Because at the end of the day, like every sale that was supposed to happen that didn't happen, every sale in the history of sales that someone was attempting where they failed and did not get someone to purchase something, the reason that happened is because they did not create enough value. That is true. Now, obviously, I do not have an encyclopedic knowledge of every single sale that was potential but then didn't happen, but I know this is true. And the reason we know it's true is because that's the basics of it. Like, if you were to try to sell me a Lamborghini, right? Like, I would immediately go, I don't care about cars. Like, cars is not something I don't understand. Sports car. I'm gonna turn some heads here, by the way. I know this is a very contentious opinion, but I do not understand why people buy things like Ferraris or Lamborghinis, considering that all of us have to drive on the same road that has speed limits. My RAV4 is allowed to go as fast as your Ferrari. I don't get it. I'm sure it's just it's in the same way that other people don't get why I play video games. Like, you're not actually an alien. Why would you want to play a game where you're pretending to be one? I get it. I mean, I get that I don't get it. But
oh man,
I know, man.
Hey, what?
I know.
Could you not? How could you not?
I get, yeah. I don't. I was like, this is a John Mulaney line. He's my favorite comedian. And like he says the same. I say the same thing that he does. My dad loves cars and tried and like had every intention of getting me into cars. And like we were supposed to work on this '69 Ford Ranger that he bought me. And we were gonna like work on it. And then every weekend it would be like, you want to work on the Ranger this weekend, or do you want to go camping? And I'd be like, camping. I don't work on the Ranger this weekend. Go to the beach. I'm like, the beach. Like, you gave me way too many opportunities to not care. And now, and I had the intention somewhere in the back of my head. I meant to learn about cars, and then I forgot.
Yeah.
And now I'm 30. Like, here we are. So, but here's the thing. If you tried to sell me a Lamborghini, I would be like, not interested. Don't care about it. It's too I'm not in a financial place to do it. I don't understand it. There's a million reasons I have. But if you were to somehow create enough value, somehow in some amazing way, and I don't think it's possible to be done, but if you were to create enough value, I could be convinced to literally buy anything. Any of us could. If it was like, but if you buy this Lamborghini, we'll pay your mom's medical bills for the rest of your life. What? That doesn't make any sense. Well, yeah, I'm gonna buy the Lamborghini, like, because that's better than that, right? Like, that's the weirdest example in the world and can never happen. But like, that's the exaggerated thing of what we're looking at here. If you build enough value into something, someone will purchase anything. A lot of times when people are perceiving value, by the way, they are not just considering the price. That's the classic that we all kind of jump to, is like the price tag, right? But like, I was trying to give you an example of cars, for instance. Like, it's a price tag thing for me, but it's also like, because obviously I can't afford something like that. But at the same time, it's also like a commitment thing for me. Like, I don't really care about it all that much. And it wouldn't fit my personality. There's a million other reasons I can think of why I wouldn't be interested in that. So sometimes like value is not just price tag related. A lot of people jump straight to that one, but there are going to be some other really, really common objections that you're going to hear when it comes to sales. So this is where we talk about, like, creating value. This is funny. Our notes are like really, really paralleling the PowerPoint today. So if you're creating value, right? Value is the value of what you are selling must outweigh the cost of the investment. Here's a really, really good example, and I'm going to try and keep this kind of short here, but let's talk about like diamonds. So diamonds are useless and pointless. Actually, they're not useless, but they are very pointless, because like there's tons of them. It's not like that rare on this planet to have diamonds. Like, they're all over the place. I mean, there's a false scarcity. There's companies that actually own all of the rights to diamonds, and they just keep them in big vaults so that there's not enough of them in the world and they can drive up prices, because they know that it's a chunk of rock that is worth nothing. So that's kind of ironic, because it's something that all of us put a lot of like value into. We've kind of created the idea of this value. And has anybody heard, this is sort of a question for Jay, Frankie, and Raph, but Maggie and Deborah, but you've heard this as well. Do you guys know how much a guy is supposed to spend on an engagement ring? You know what the rule is?
No, I didn't know there was a rule.
Yeah, there's an unwritten rule.
No, I've heard it before, but I don't remember what it was.
In a year?
Yeah,
what was it, Raph?
10% of what he makes in a year?
That's pretty close, actually. That's not the one I've heard, although, maybe that's a version somebody else has heard. What I've heard is it's 2 months' salary.
Oh, okay.
Like,
So like 20%, 10, 20, something like that.
Yeah, somewhere around there, right? 2 months' salary is what you're supposed to spend on engagement. You know where that rule came from? An ad written by a company that sells diamonds. They invented the engagement. Like, wedding rings have been around for a very long time, but engagement rings were something that somebody just invented one day. And was like, well, show her you really love her by getting her an engagement ring. And now there's a ton of value built into this thing that we all sort of perceive, right? Like, it's like the amount of value, it's like, oh, this is my loved one. Like, I don't have any, there's no more value in the world than that. Like, that's the most valuable thing in my life is like my relationship with this person, right? And so like, we are willing to pay through the nose for essentially nothing. So that's what's kind of interesting there as well. Like that's just kind of highlighting the example of like when you build enough value into something, people will purchase it. But if there's not enough value into it, there's no reason to do it. Like if I told you that you should purchase a 6 month dating ring, like you've been dating 6 months, now you got to get one, and I were a jewelry salesperson, you'd be like, why? And be like, because it's important. It's the 6 month ring. You've never heard of this? And you'd be like, no, and it's not important to me. I'm out. Like you would have there just not enough value built into it. Now, if I did something else where I was like, but it gets satellite TV, now suddenly be like, what? So you gotta build enough value into it. So the biggest perceptions of like a barrier are going to be price, like we talked about, but a really big one for personal training is going to be time as well. Like a lot of people will say, oh, I don't have enough time. Again, we need to build value into that. And it's like, well, would you have enough time if like working out gave you more energy as a person, and like you were healthier and had more energy and you were more lively? It would make your days literally seem longer. Then do you feel like you have the time? Or if it's like, well, how much time do you spend, watching Netflix, like, or effort, right? If you break it down in such a way that it makes a little more sense. If somebody pictures working out and they're like, oh, I don't know if I have like the gumption, I don't know if I can just put that much effort into something. And it's like, if you just commit an hour a day, right? That's not that high. That's not that much of a time or effort commitment, right? It's an hour of your time every single day. Or commitment. This is another one that a lot of times, this is one that like always scares me off, is the commitment to like major purchases, where it's like, we're going to put you on a contract and bill you monthly. That's something where I always get super flighty. But again, like if you're like, well, and these are all the classic like things you'll hear people say, but it's like, you can cancel any time, you're in control of your membership, you can do it from your phone, blah, 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 blah. Any of those things that like make it easier to kind of overcome that, are going to present value. But regardless of what it is, regardless of like what any of those objections may be, you want to educate your clients on the value within what it is you're selling. So the key, at the end of the day, the most important thing is that the value of what you're selling has to outweigh their investment. That could be price, that could be time and effort, or it could be commitment. We're going to come back to this in just a little bit, when we talk about how to overcome objections, because those are basically classic examples of objections. Oh, I can't because I can't afford it, right? Oh, I can't because I don't have enough time. I can't because I don't want to, because I don't want to be locked down. What if I move, So all of those things are examples of objections, and we're going to talk about overcoming objections here in a little bit. So now that you've sort of, and by the way, like this is, and they got it right here, this is a key thing to remember. You're not manipulating like anybody by trying to like do sales. At least I hope not. I mean, I'm not controlling how you guys sell stuff. You are allowed to do your own methods. But like a lot of times you think of like selling and you think of like, manipulative, like sleazy salespeople who are, selling. I always think of Danny DeVito in the movie Matilda. He's like a really dirty used car salesman. But it's not through anything like that. Remember, you can't make a difference in this person's life. You can't help anybody unless you get to train them. And you can't train them unless they have training sessions. And they can't have training sessions unless they buy them, right? That's really the goal here. I got into this industry not to be a bajillionaire. I got into this industry because like I wanted to make people healthier. I've been around people who struggle with their health my whole life. I want to kind of cut that off at the head. So this is where creating that value comes in. If you're driven to create that value, if you're motivated by something like that, it's gonna come through. It's not gonna come through as manipulative. So this is where you actually get into like asking for the sale. And this is, NASM has this sentence here: professionals who are not fanatical about selling are also not fanatical about increasing other people's performance or health or self-esteem or quality of life. Again, these are all things that people are passionate about. Like, these are the reasons you guys came here to be trainers, right? You wanted to make people healthier, happier, and live longer. You wanted to enhance people's lives, right? Like, that's what is your motivation to be a personal trainer, most likely. I can't speak for everybody. But you can't do any of that unless you have clients who have sessions, and they can't have sessions unless you sell them those sessions. So that's where this is where we sort of get into actually asking for the sale. And the big thing here that a lot of people don't realize when they think that they are bad at sales is that they don't realize that they never even asked for it. You have to ask for the sale. You have to ask for the sale. There's a really uncomfortable exercise that I used to have to do with my boss. Like, we would run this drill basically, which is where you would do like a mock session where we would pair up and walk in and do like a mock sales thing. And it was a game to see how quickly you could get to the sentence, "Great, do you have your credit card?" Like, let's get you signed up right now. And it was like basically a game that we would play to see how quickly you could get to that. And so like the minute somebody said, "Oh, that does sound like a good idea. Oh, awesome. Let's get you signed up. Do you have your credit card with you? Do you have a check?" Like any of that. And like, again, that's a weird selling game that honestly always rubbed me the wrong way. It wasn't exactly my favorite thing in the world, but I get the theory behind it. Like, theoretically, the reason they're doing that is because the biggest mistake a lot of people make is they don't realize to ask for the sale. It is a classic thing that happens. I'll be like shadowing a new trainer, and like they'll do like a fitness assessment on somebody, or they'll just have a conversation. I'm never present for like an entire fitness assessment. But I'd be present for like, just sitting there like during the sales portion. And they'll have somebody who's just super excited. They're like, "So we're going to set you up for a fitness assessment. We're going to learn a little bit about your body." And they're like, "Great." And it's like, "We're going to build you a program that's going to help you." And they're like, "Great." And they get like, the person on the other end of the table is getting like more and more and more excited. And then that trainer's like, "So yeah, just get back to me whenever you get a chance. Like, let's meet sometime this week." And it's like, "Oh, no, 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 no." Like, they just immediately derailed by putting it off to another time, putting it on the client to reach out and call them. That's a classic like rookie mistake. So you need to actually ask for the sale. Most potential sales are lost because they're not asked for. You really, really need to actually ask for the sale. They're like, "Great, when can we sign you up?" Like give them a deadline. Like, "All right, how do we get you signed up before tomorrow? How do we get you like on the book? So we want to start you training by like Monday on a fresh start. We want to get you training sessions so you can actually start training, get you onto your program as fast as possible." So 4 really common reasons that you're also going to see here. Not enough value. So you'll actually sense that, and therefore like feel uncomfortable to ask for the sale. You're like, "Oh, I haven't built enough value into this." If you start to feel that way, it's time to start talking about all the awesome things that you do as a trainer, right? Be like, "I'm going to set you up with homework. You're going to have access to me for personal coaching if you need like tips throughout the week." I've had clients who struggle. You mentioned that you struggle with eating. I have clients who struggle with eating, and like, you're always welcome to like text me when you're out in the world and you're feeling uncomfortable and you're like, "What do I do? I'm at a big family style dinner. Do you have any tips for dealing with that?" That's something I can help you through. Build value into that session, right? Talk about how you're going to give your client like easy to understand homework, so that they don't just work out when they're working with you. You're going to put them on a program that's going to make your workouts even better, but also like you'll make it easy for them to understand. So build value. If you start to feel like you're not comfortable getting ready to ask for the sale, go back to building more value. The more value built in, literally your brain will go, yeah, this is a really good deal. Holy crap. They should be excited to buy this darn thing. So if you are feeling uncomfortable, go back and start building more value. Insufficient rapport, that's another one. Right? If you don't have like a good conversation with that client, again, if you start to feel like that's also something that's kind of holding you back, sometimes people are nervous to ask for sales because they feel like the person sitting across from them is just a stranger. And it's like, what right do I have to try to sell a stranger anything? If they feel like a stranger, learn a little bit more about them. Ask them about their family. Ask them about like what they do for a living. What are their interests? What are their hobbies? Get to know them better. And then you will be more comfortable figuring out like what type of training you have available that will fit their lifestyle. If they say that they're like, well, you know, I just had barely enough money to afford this gym membership. I've been putting some money aside so that I can purchase some equipment at home, or I've been like, you know, saving a little bit so that I can buy like a trainer, but like, you know, I'm a little nervous now that I see the overall like 1 hour training session prices. And like you start to learn a little bit more about that person. You're like, okay, it sounds like, you know, price is an issue. Maybe the personal training approach isn't right for you, but we do offer small group training where you'll be working with 3 other people. That's still a lot of individualized, like personal attention, but the price point is drastically lower. Is that something you'd be interested in as well? And then all of a sudden they're like, oh my gosh, that sounds great. Yeah, absolutely. That's an excellent thing. And maybe that's not what somebody wants. Maybe you are talking to somebody and they're like, I'm really anxious about working out in a large group, or even a small group. I really want like the personalized attention because I'm really afraid that I'm not going to be able to understand what to do. And like, okay, it sounds like you really do want the personalized attention. Let's look at like one-on-one sessions, right? So, you know, learn a little bit more about your client and that'll help you build some more rapport there. And then the professional didn't affirmatively ask for the sale. You did not affirmatively ask for the sale. We already talked about that one. And then the other one is occasionally, and this is just going to happen every now and then, but the potential client legitimately just doesn't have the ability to pay. Right? Maybe they literally just do not have the money to, you know, afford this right now. That's going to happen. You know, you're only going to have like, if you can have a 15% closing rate, if you're closing like 15 out of every 100 people that you're talking to, or a little over 1 out of 10 people that you're talking to, that's a pretty good closing rate actually. You know, so like your potential client, like, you know, you're gonna meet some really great people, and if they don't have the ability to pay, that's okay. They might later. So you're gonna keep their contact information and possibly reach out to them. But maybe that's just not something they had right now, and that's all right. But you can't find that out unless you actually ask for the sale. You're never gonna know. So again, ask for the sale. All right, so that is a little bit there. Now we're going to kind of pivot. This next little part is going to apply in both directions. This is going to apply if you are going to work at a gym, and it is also going to apply for those of you who are interested in being your own trainer. So like if you are working out there on your own, like independent contracting, going to people's houses, or, you know, again, training in a gym, but like you are bringing your clients to that gym and you're paying rent. These are 10 steps that apply to both places, commercial gyms as like an employee and independent contractors. So this is basically the 10 steps to determining how much you want to make. And so like, this is how you figure out your salary. This is gonna how you're gonna figure out your yearly earnings basically. And it actually starts with my favorite thing right here. Step 1 is my favorite one. So we're going to set up, basically what we're going to do right now is we're going to set up an annual income plan. We're going to break it down into 10 steps for how to come up with success. Now, one little thing I'm going to say, NASM breaks it down to 10 steps. I really think this should be less steps. They get real detailed here, but we'll see that in just a second. I just want to put that little caveat out there. So, so 10 steps to determining income. Not just determining. 10 steps to determining and reaching desired income. Okay, so this is going to be how we really break down how much you want to earn. And so the first step is to literally ask yourself, how much do you want to earn? Step one, and this is, by the way, this is how you determine your prices. This is how you figure out how much to charge each client. So let me give you an example. We'll do like a really fast version of this right now. Jay, how much are you going to charge per session?
$75.
$75 an hour? All right. So it sounds like you've already thought about this a little bit. But let me ask you sort of the reverse of this question. How much money do you want to make a year?
125,000.
125,000. That's a great answer. All right, 125,000. And how many hours a week are you interested in working?
36 to 40.
36 to 40. So you're willing to work like all the way up to full time. Cool.
Yeah.
All right. Now I got a pretty good idea here. And this is, we're going to go through this information in a slightly different order, but 125,000 a year. There are 50 weeks in a year, right? There's 52 weeks in a year, but 2 weeks vacation, right? We want to have time to go spend in Belize. So 125,000 a year. We're going to divide this by 50. That means that you need to make $2,500 a week, right, in order to make that. And if you're willing to work 40 hours a week, you need to charge $62.50 an hour. So you can charge like $75 an hour for your base, but then maybe if somebody purchases like a larger package, you can get that price all the way down to $62.50 an hour and still meet your yearly goals. Now, that's dependent on filling your entire schedule. So like if you only wanted to, and if you wanted to work like that, let's say 2,500 divided by 36 hours, now you're getting up to like $69 an hour, right? And who knows, are you gonna have all of your hours filled? Maybe not. So maybe you have a little bit of a buffer and you do charge a little bit more. Or maybe you have overhead costs, right? Maybe you're paying $15 an hour at the gym every time you train a client. Well, if you're charging 75 and you lose 15 every time, you're actually making 60. And if you're working 40 hours a week, 50 weeks a year, you're at 120,000, right? So you're a little bit short. So these are the ways that like we can kind of consider these first 3 steps, in my opinion, are the most important steps. Then we start to break it down, like NASM gets crazy specific with the rest of the steps. But these really, like how do you determine your prices? It is determined by this answer. How much do you want to make? That's what determines your prices. Not the market that you're in, not how much you think people are willing to pay, not how much you even think you're worth. It is literally like, how do you determine your prices? It's determined by how much do you want to make. So step 1, oh my God, stop underlining stuff. What is your desired annual income, right? Ask yourself, how much do you want to earn a year, right? So annual income is going to be desired income, you know, over the entire year. Shocker, right? Step 2, backed myself into a corner with that one. Step 2, how much must, you want to ask yourself, how much must be earned per week to achieve that annual goal, right? That's the next question you want to ask yourself. So you're going to take annual income. Oh, I always forget the alt symbol for divide. Well, divided by 50, because there are 52 weeks with 2 weeks assumed vacation, right? So divide your annual income by 50. So let's say, we'll put this in italics, desired income of, let's say 120. I'm going to use 120,000 because it's going to make my life easier when it comes to math in a little bit. So we're going to go 120,000 a year. Desired income is 120,000 divided by 50. I need to look it up. Hold on. I'll go here. Alt symbol. Alt. 0247. Gotta have that memorized. 120,000 divided by 50 is going to be okay, hold on. Yeah. Oh, it went to 150. What am I doing? I saw it anyways. It was 24. 2,400 per week. Okay, so that's what we're getting there, right? Desired income is 120,000 per year divided by 50. It's going to give us 2,400 a week. So our next one is we got to figure out how many sessions need to be performed, right, in order to meet that. And so you're going to take your weekly goal and divide it by the amount earned per session. So there's two ways to do this, and this is why I was saying this works towards commercial gyms, or if you're working at working for yourself. If you're working for yourself, you just need to divide how many hours you're willing to work by that number. Like Jay, you said you were willing to work 40 hours, right? Well, you would take 2,400 divided by 40 hours a week. You need to charge $60 an hour at least. And this is all like pre-tax, but like, you know, you need to get 60 there and that will get you to where you're talking about. So if you're working for yourself, you need to determine how many hours you're willing to work. But generally you're working in if you're working in a club, the prices are already set. So let's say you're working, like, let's see here, let's Google it actually. How much does a 1 hour training session cost at Gold's Gym? Let's see if we Google this question. How much do they charge? Oh, you know what? Here's the average personal trainer costs across the board. That's cool. How much does a personal trainer cost? $40 to $70 per hour. Okay, great. So they cost like $40 to $70 per hour. Let's say it's $70 an hour and you are making 60% of that, because that's a pretty common split in the gyms. That means you're making $42 an hour, right? In terms of your actual income. So what we're going to do here, oops, that's the wrong one, is you're going to take the weekly goal and divide it by the amount earned per session. The amount earned per session in this case was $42 an hour. So take the weekly and divide it by the amount earned per session, right? Oh, shoot, I'm supposed to do the question version. There we go. To earn, oh yeah, because it's underlined. To earn the weekly goal, how many sessions need to be performed, right? So take the weekly goal and divide it by the amount earned per session. So our example of that is going to be $42 earned per session, right? And so we're going to divide 2,400. This is divided by 42. That is going to be 57 sessions a week, which is obviously going to be nearly impossible. you'd have to work 57 hours a week. But remember, there are things like duo sessions where you are training 2 people simultaneously, making much more. So I should probably change this number ever so slightly. Sorry, guys. I'm going to go back and just adjust these numbers really quick, just because I do want to kind of get, like 42 is a pretty good standard rate working in a lot of gyms. So I do want to I'm doing a commercial example here, so I'm just going to lower this just a little bit. Let's go to, let's just say like making 60K a year. 60,000, 50. Yeah, it's 1,200. Oh, it's perfectly half. I didn't even mean to do that. Okay, so 1,200 divided by 42. Not that the other one's not possible. It's unlikely in like a place like 24-hour fitness. So that's gonna be about $28. That's about 28 sessions. So $42 earned per session. So that's going to be what did I do here? Weird. So that's going to be 24 divided by 42 equals, how many was it? 29 sessions per week. Okay, so you're trying to earn $2,400 a week. If you're making $42 an hour, then that means you need to have 29 sessions every single week. That's pretty manageable, right? That's about mid to part-time, right in the middle range there, which is what a lot of personal trainers do. This is a kind of a classic place a lot of people find themselves in, is like maybe you work at 24-hour fitness, and you earn about $42 an hour there, you know, after all said and done. And, you know, and actually 24 is a little bit less than that, but let's say with commissions and stuff, it averages out to around 42. 29 sessions per week, right? And then you get 10 hours left in your week every week. Maybe that's where you teach some group exercise class around the city. Maybe you have some private clients on the side where you're charging a much higher rate. That's a pretty common life for a personal trainer, is kind of working in like a couple different locations.
Hey, Brad.
Yeah.
I think on C you got to put 12 instead of 24.
Oh, you're right. Thank you. I went back to the other number. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Yeah, I got you.
Oh, is that, yeah. 16, 50. Yeah, I put it in the wrong place twice. There we go. So now, now you got to determine like what your closing percentage is. So now, again, this is very much getting into like working at commercial gyms. A big part of what we do is figure out our closing percentage. Your closing percentage is the number of people you talk to versus the number of people who actually purchased training. And so next thing is, what is the closing percentage, right? And the closing percentage is going to be determined by the total number of people talked to versus the number of people who purchased training. So you got to figure out like what your closing percentage is by sort of being like, okay, I talked to 20 people today and 3 of them signed up for personal training, right? So we'll deal with that in just a second. So I talked to 20 people today. 3 of them signed up for training. So I'm going to go 3 people signed up for training divided by the 20 that I talked to. I've got a closing percentage of 15, which is pretty good. That's pretty darn good, actually. So I spoke to 20 people and 3 signed up for training. If you did that in one day, that your boss would be ecstatic. So italics 3 divided by 20 equals a 15% closing rate. Okay, everybody follow that? Number of people you helped versus number of people who signed up. Next step, again, I told you we're getting real specific. What time frame are you going to actually acquire all your new clients? So this is used for what we call forecasting. So forecasting is a term to describe like a trainer figuring out how long it's going to take them to fill up their schedule, right? Like how are you going to meet your quota, for instance? Use forecasting to figure that out. If you have a 15% closing rate and you need, let's say, 20 new clients, right? Or I'm sorry, let's say, again, we're going to make this math easy. Let's say you need 21 new clients, right? And your closing rate is 15%. That means every time you talk to 20 people, you're getting about 3 clients, which means you need to talk to 20 people 7 times. Talk to 20 people a day over a week, you're going to fill your schedule up. You're going to have 21 clients by the end of that week, which is why a 15% closing rate is crazy. But that's basically step 5 here. You're going to ask yourself, in what time frame will new clients be acquired, right? So the big thing to remember is that like unrealistic timeframes can really lead to some intense frustrations. If you expect to get 21 new clients in 1 week's time, I think you're going to probably end up pretty frustrated. I mean, it can be done in like January, but like that's about it. If you're expecting that kind of thing, that's probably going to lead to some frustrations. But if on the other flip side of things, if you do not set yourself a time frame and give yourself like a goal, there's no sense of urgency, and so like you don't work quite as hard as you sort of should, right? Like sometimes you'll be like, oh, well, it's fine. I'll get them when I get them, right? My schedule will fill up eventually. You know, there's not a sense of urgency there. It's like people who say, well, I'm going to start working out tomorrow, you know? We want to put a goal. It's like, that's why we like our SMART goals to be a little timely, right? So in what time frame are those clients going to be acquired? That's the next step you want to ask yourself, right? So set a goal that has a specific end date in mind for you to get the appropriate number of clients, right? Set yourself a very specific goal. And that's where we do the math that we kind of just mentioned in step 6 here. So ask yourself, how many potential clients need to be interacted with? Oops. There we go. Is that? Oh, it is only one. In the given time frame. Right. So let's say, so what you're going to do is you are going to take the desired number of clients and divide that by the number in the closing percentage. Okay. So you need, let's see here, 29 sessions per week, right? And you are getting a 15% closing rate. So 29 times 0.15. Wait, is that right? Hold on. Take the desired number of clients. 29. Is that what it is? No, I did the same thing. 29. There we go. That's right. Okay. So I was like, what am I doing wrong here? I am multiplying and not dividing. Whoa, my internet. Okay. So again, we want to have 29 clients, right? Desired 29 sessions per week divided by 15% equals, you need to speak to 193 people spoken to. So it's a lot of people, right? Like you got to talk to a whole bunch of folks, 193 people. But Now that you know exactly how many people you sort of need to talk to, you can kind of break that down. It's like, you're not going to talk to 193 people a day, but you can set yourself some specific goals that need to be broken to talk to over like the next coming weeks, right? Because remember, you're also going to be training your clients, right? Like, you're going to have times where you're actually working with people. And so again, this is where like we are straying into super specific NASM territory, where they are like breaking things down a little more intensely than I think is necessary. They're about to break it down per hour. So how many potential clients need to be contacted each day? If that's 193 people and you are giving yourself a goal, I'm actually going to kind of end the notes steps here, because if you do want to get into this, this is where, I mean, this is very, very specific to NASA. Most people end at that last step. Like step 6 is usually where people get. It's like, all right, my closing percentage is 15. I need to speak to 193 people, right? And you just tick them off slowly. But let's say you had a goal of like 10. No, let's not do 10. Let's do like a goal of like 15 weeks, right? You've given yourself 3 months to get yourself up to like a full schedule, right? That's a lot of time to kind of get up there. So that means that you would take 193 and divide it by 15 weeks. That means that you need to talk to 12 people a week. You're going to work 5 days a week, which is our next step. How many people need to be contacted each day? So your next step is I need to talk to 12.86. We're going to round that up to 13. So I need to talk to 13 people a week. I'm going to work 5 days a week. That means I need to talk to 2.6 people a day. So we're going to round that up to 3 a day just to keep it simple. Now let's say like you got to figure out how many people you need to talk to per hour. That is literally how specific this gets. Let's say you work a 4-hour shift. That means you need to talk to less than 1 person an hour in order to succeed. Again, breaking it down per hour though, right? For each contact, the hour, project the measurable assistant. Breaking it down per hour is really unrealistic, because you are going to be training your clients and you are not available to just sit down and straight talk to somebody the entire X number of hours. Now, if you are working like directly in sales only, like let's say you decide not to be a trainer and you instead go for like the role of fitness manager or like salesperson at the front desk, not front desk, but salesperson in like the sales team, you're gonna, yeah, it's important for you to figure out like how many people you need to. If you're living only on your sales, you can break it down per hour, and that like gives you motivation. It's like, I need to talk to 10 people before this hour is over. I need to get out on the floor and speak with people, right? Now, step 9 is where we're back into the stuff that becomes like super applicable to us, right? So I'm actually going to relabel. It is going to label here. I'm going to skip to 9. I know it makes the notes really weird, which is why like when I'm normally doing this on a whiteboard, I usually just bullet point it. And honestly, most people stop here at step 3. Once you figure out like how much you need to earn per session, you kind of have a really good idea. The rest of that kind of comes naturally. But looking at step, how do I relabel the number here? Let's see here. Set numbering value. This one's going to go all the way up to 9. Very sneaky stuff. All right. Now you got to ask for their contact information. Again, ask for the sale. So at the very end, ask for each member's contact information. That's step 9. Get their contact info. Whether or not they decide to sign up for your, whether they actually sign up for training or not, try to get their contact information. Not everybody's going to offer it up. Some people are going to be like, you know what, nope. But if you've built up a good level of rapport, they're going to trust they can give your contact information. You're not going to bug them, you know? It's just an opportunity for you to kind of be able to reach out at a later date in case anything ever changes, right? So ask for their contact information. You can offer exercise assistance at a later date if you want to, if you have their contact information, and then you can contact them and arrange or assist them in implementing new exercises. Right, so maybe you can just get in touch with them and say like, hey, you weren't really all that interested in training, but you know, if you're interested, I can still show you a few exercises, you know, between my sessions. You can still give somebody a little bit of value. They are gonna like take those exercises, maybe they'll go back and do them, and then they come back to you in 4 weeks and they're like, you know what, I've been implementing that plank that you showed me. That plank variation that you showed me, I've been implementing it and it's been really effective. Is there any other core exercises that you've got? And like now it reopens the opportunity for you to be like, yeah, let's maybe look at like setting up an actual session, you know, and maybe we can revisit to see if you're interested in getting a training package. Then I can show you all the plank exercises in the world, you know? So getting their contact information really helps you stay in touch with somebody for any potential future engagements there. Why are you being so weird? There we go. All right, and step 10, follow up. So step 10, this is, again, also arguably one of the most important ones. Every exercise is an assessment, right? Meaning that like you're going to keep detailed notes on your members. You're going to know, God dang it. Auto format, come on. You're being weird. You're going to keep details on like how your client is moving, right? Like are they, you're assessing somebody's like posture, you see them on the gym floor, right? That gives you an opportunity to kind of see how they're moving. And so you can follow up with them and be like, hey, I saw you on the gym floor today, you were moving this way. You want to make sure you drop the, you know, round those shoulders, pull them back and pinch. That's fine. You can do that. That's actually really effective if you didn't sell the sale. But the other version is you want to follow up with a member. You can do it with a handwritten thank you card if you want to. I have never ever done that, but that's what it says in the book. But generally just giving somebody a brief message and telling them that you're excited about like working with them in the future. That's a great thing to follow up. Once you've like made the sale, be like, hey, I'm really excited to start training, and then also try to get them on the books. So follow up within 24 hours, follow up with the member via phone or email. So give them a call, give them an email, all that's really important. So make sure that when you are mentioning stuff in that email, you are trying to determine the next time they're going to be coming into the gym. Make sure you're trying to schedule your appointment. This part right here is absolutely key. I'm going to put it in bold and capitals. Schedule the appointment as quickly as possible. 2 reasons for this. Number 1, you do not want somebody to randomly cancel for any reason. You want them to start training so that they continue working towards their goal, right? Schedule their appointments so that you can get them on the gym floor and actually start training them. In fact, if you can train them the day that you did it because you happen to have an opening right there, go for it. If they've got all their equipment with them, they purchase training, take them right to the gym floor and start working out. That's awesome. Schedule that appointment as quickly as you can. It will immediately show them the value in what it is they just purchased, which will make them more comfortable. It will obviously get them working towards their goals, which again will make your training a success, which will make them want to sign up again in the future for their next goal. There's a million reasons to schedule that as quickly as possible. Also, you do not want to forget about your client and then not train them, because then you are also not like earning that income that you just, you know, they spent the money, but you don't get any of it until you actually start training them. That's how you unlock their training sessions. That's how you earn your hourly rate. So get it on the books. And that's it. Yeah, so here's some general information. When asking for a sale, 9 out of 10 people are gonna say no. If you've got a 10% closing rate, that's awesome. 15% was our example here. like generally, if you've got a 10% closing rate, you're actually doing great. The big thing we need to remember is that all buying decisions are based on emotion. Okay, it's based on whether or not your client feels safe and if they feel that enough value was built into what it is they're trying to purchase, right? Again, trying to build that value is really important. So in the end, if your client says yes, process that payment as quickly as possible, schedule their first appointment as quickly as possible, send them a thank you card. And this is another one, call and confirm their first appointment. First-time clients are notorious for forgetting about their personal training sessions. I don't know why. You would think they'd be excited, and it would be the one thing they would remember. But people are notorious for spacing out on that first session. So make sure, like 24 hours before their session, give them a call and just be like, "Hey, just confirming we're on for 6 a.m. tomorrow." Congratulate them. And then review any of their goals to make sure that or they know that you have taken that into account. If your client says no, if they're not interested, that's okay. Remain professional and helpful. Don't be unhelpful at that point. Try to stay as helpful as possible. Thank them for participating in your assessment, or thank them for participating in like your sales presentation. Make sure you have their contact information, which we already talked about, and then ask if it's okay to give them a call in a couple weeks to see if they maybe change their mind. Do a follow-up a few weeks later just to see, hey, how's everything going? 2 weeks later, how are your goals? Have you been working towards everything? And if they say, you know what, I incorporated some of that stuff that you told me about during our fitness assessment, but I've been having trouble, I'm having a hard time interpreting it. Be like, well, why don't you come in for another one and we can have another talk together, and see if maybe you're interested in getting a different training package. Didn't sound like you were interested last time. Maybe things have changed. That's great. Follow up on stuff like that. People are definitely willing to change their mind after a certain period of time. And that's it. In sort of the initial stuff there. That is the last of the sales information in your textbook. Do you guys have any questions on that stuff? Any comments or concerns? Anybody feel weird about anything?
No, not at all.
No, that was cool. That was good. That was good.
Okay. So there is one other little tiny PowerPoint I want to get through just really quick. And I'm going to kind of speed through this. Normally we don't do this as a traditional PowerPoint. Normally we do this as an exercise in class, where everybody pairs up, and we do kind of role play sessions where people pair with me and we kind of walk through a mock sale. So I've never tried to do this as just a very traditional PowerPoint. So I'm just going to kind of verbally walk through it really quick. Client acquisition. So you do need to know what point of sale. Oh, that's right. There's a little bit of vocabulary at the front, but this is not stuff that's in your book. So I'm going to move through this vocab pretty quickly. No problem, Frankie. See you soon.
All right, man.
So point of sale, POS, right, is a client who has purchased a personal training package and is enrolled in a membership, right? So that's the point of sale. That's the moment you have a sale. So now you're going to move over to your POS system, your point of sale system, where it's they're interested in getting a package. Now you have to actually sell it. Every gym's POS is going to be a little bit different, but basically it'll be how you enter credit card information and tie it to your member's account. That is something you're going to want to learn from your training manager, because again, it's going to be different everywhere. Another common term that you're going to hear are new business. New business is a client who, any potential new client, right? That's new business. And then a re-sign is anybody who is already a client who is signing up for training again, right? They ran out of their 8-session package and now they're reapplying it, right? So those are some kind of 3 key terms there. Couple more. We've got the entire process we just went through, which is called forecasting. That's how you come up with your plan. It's the process by where usually you'll sit down with your manager and your manager will kind of coach you towards forecasting. They'll be like, all right, how much money do you want to make? How many hours are you willing to work? This is how much we make per hour. This is how many people you're going to need to talk to if you need to talk to that many people an hour, or I'm sorry, if you need to talk to that many people in order to get that many clients, how many hours do you need to be here, right? So you'll sit down and kind of go through those 10 steps that we just went through and actually forecast a plan. It's like, okay, I know exactly what my schedule is going to look like. And then good managers will also say, now, halfway through this plan, you're going to actually have a lot of clients and it's going to start getting busy. So are you willing to put more hours on the floor during sales time? You know, I know you said you were only willing to work till 11 a.m. Because you're working the 5 a.m. shift. But are you willing, like, once your schedule starts getting full, you know, those final little gaps are going to be harder to fill. Can you work an extra couple hours during that time? Because you still need to talk to more people. But you're not going to have time to talk to people because you're on the training floor. And it's like, great, right? Like, good managers will kind of prepare you for that. And so that's where you have your show percentage and your closing percentage. Your show percentage is the number of people that you talk to that actually are interested in like hearing your sales pitch. And then your closing percentage, again, is the number of people you helped versus the number of people that actually purchased training. Those are both really important in order for you to figure out how many people you need to talk to versus how many people you need to actually give like a tour or an assessment to. And again, show percentage isn't even in the regular textbook. That's actually a little more advanced. So the most common is going to be face-to-face prospecting. And this is where we kind of practice stuff, right? Fitness professional usually has like a mindset. You know, sometimes like a negative mindset here. Prospecting can be a little intimidating when you think about it. But basically it's like where you're working the floor, offering people suggestions, you know, showing people how to use different machines and how to like have specific techniques, or even maybe just hanging out the front desk and like checking people in, or handing out towels. Any of that stuff, those are examples of like prospecting. Having your clients introduce you to potential members, that's an example of prospecting. And then there's all the weird fun stuff that they do at gyms, like raffles. Planet Fitness does like Pizza Fridays, I think. Events like races and things like that that you go out to and like set a table up at, social media, all of those things are examples of prospecting, right? You basically just want to get yourself out there as much as possible to get as much contact as possible, and then set up as many, you know, fitness assessments and first sessions as possible. Once you do that, you've got more and more opportunities to like actually work with people and potentially sell them training. So there is a lot of examples of like professional networking, like charitable events, going to chambers of commerce, public speaking events, going to schools. All of those things are really good places for you to actually network. By the way, if you're looking at like being your own personal trainer, you can go to these things as well. You don't necessarily have to be a member of a gym. There's also cross-departmental interaction. This slide is massive and huge, but basically what it's saying is like, cross-departmentally, you as a trainer, get to know the membership sales team for sure. Get to know them because like the membership sales team sells them a membership, and like they were probably mentioning while they're selling that, hey, you know, you get a free assessment the first time you sign up. And it's like, now that they have somebody, they can bring them over to you and you can interact, and now it's time to set them up for that assessment. They've basically done the show percentage for you, right? Like they are showing, they've already set up a show, right? Like an actual assessment rather than just a conversation. So get to know them, and then also get to know the front desk staff. The front desk are the most interconnected people at the gym. They know everybody because they check every single, nobody walks to that gym that the front desk person doesn't know, right? They see their name and a picture of their face every single time. So that, in my opinion, they're the most valuable people to be friends with in the gym. Your fellow trainers are busy training, but the front desk is there. They're going to have advice for, you know, helping you. They're going to know like those clients, and like they might introduce you. That's awesome. So there is cross-departmental stuff there. And then any former prospects, right? That is, again, a potential place. So reach out to somebody every 30 days, every 60 days, and then reach out to them again 90 days, and then that's about it. You know, just a follow-up email, reaching out to somebody that you might have talked to one time before. So when you're building rapport, again, this is where we usually do our little role play session. Ask them by their name. And so then I would turn to the student that I pulled to the front and I'd say, what's your name? And I don't know how to do that. I mean, I have a mirror here. I could be like, yeah, stand here and be like, what's your name? Oh, my name's Brad. Oh, how you doing, Brad? All right, it's getting weird. So these are how you build a rapport. Ask their name, find out where they're from, ask about their family, what are their hobbies, where do they see themselves in the future? That's my favorite one. Like where do they like want to be with their training goals in the future? That is huge. Be an active listener. I will always point out how like as you're talking to someone, you are going to maintain eye contact. You're not going to have any weird closed off posture, right? We don't want to do any of that stuff. Try not to interrupt them too often and do not be disinterested. Then be 5 minutes early, right? Always show up for your session 5 minutes early. Wear the appropriate professional attire. Don't lose sight of your goal, which is to help this person sign up for training. And then there's kind of key behaviors here. You want to be dependable, right? You want to follow up on everything that you say you're going to do. You want to have integrity, which means that, again, you are not just like reaching for a sale. You are trying to help this person, and a sale is a byproduct. You empathize with this person, you know, like try to see yourself in their shoes. Be honest, don't make anything up. Oh my God. And then try to be a role model, you know, like be in the gym consistently, you know, work out at your gym. Be a model like of showing up on time, listening to people, like, you know, actually model what it is you're trying to sell. That is always, always, always important. Now, this is what gets a little weird. This is where I don't know how I'm going to do this online. But overcoming objections, there are kind of 4 key steps here. Step 1, validate the person. So like, let's say they're like, oh, you know what? I don't have enough money. It's just too expensive. I'm not interested, right? Step 1, validate them. It's like, I hear that. It is, I mean, it's certainly not cheap. It's an expensive service that you're purchasing, you know? So you are going to validate what it is they're saying. Step 2, you're going to isolate the problem. And then say, but what you're saying is like, money is the one thing that's keeping you from purchasing this training package right now. Like the number one thing, like it's not a time problem. It's not that you're not excited about it. Like you want training, but you just don't think you can afford it. Am I reading that right? Right. That's an example of isolating the problem. And then they're going to go, yeah, it's really just the money. Right. Or maybe they will go into something else. Then you need to like validate and isolate that problem. But you need to break it down and get each problem all by itself. Then you're going to remind the client of like why they came to the gym in the first place. And so you're going to say, well, like you were saying, your goal is to, you know, lose as much weight as possible before your daughter's wedding. And so like you really want to kind of whip yourself into shape so you look good for all those wedding photos. And you got about 6 months to do it. Could you see and so it's like now you are sort of reminding them what their goals are, which kind of leads you directly into step 4, which is like resolve the problem by offering a suggestion, maybe saying something like, could you see yourself paying for something like this for only a 6-month period? Are you picturing it as like, you know, a lifetime commitment, or are you picturing it as like, this is the tool to help you reach your goal? That's a way that you can kind of resolve that. Or you could say, well, you know, we do offer like small group training, which is a lot more inexpensive. You just have to come to these specifically like scheduled small group training classes. It's a great way to burn a lot of calories. And it's a much, much lower price point. If money was the only issue, doesn't sound like it's a time issue or anything like that. Sounds like, you know, this could be a really potentially good solution for you. So you validate it by saying like, I hear you, I get it, right? You feel like you don't have enough time in your life, right? Isolate that problem, but it's like, if you did have enough time, would you be interested? And then remind them like why they're here. It's like, you said you wanted to, you know, train for the marathon. Training for marathon obviously takes a lot of commitment, but training like once or a couple hours a week with me, and then like me giving you homework is something that like gives you a lot of control over your schedule. You can find time to do it anywhere. And that's what coaching is. So then you try to resolve the problem, right? Again, it's not going to work every time, but that's how we do that. And normally I get to do a fun role-playing session up at the front of the class, and I don't get to do that right now. So I hope that was a good example, and I'm really uncomfortable because I feel like it probably wasn't as good as it normally is, but like, hopefully that was helpful. Do you guys have any questions about any of that stuff?
No. I do have a question though, in regards to homework one. I was trying, do we have, a textbook that we can reference this information with?
So that stuff should be in your chapter 1. Chapter 20 of your regular. Did you find anything in there?
Let me look real quick. I'm
Yeah.
gonna pull it up.
I'm gonna pull that up right now. So I'm gonna do my sneaky dance around the answer way of answering all of these real quick. But this is the stuff this should be in your chapter 20 of your regular textbook.
Oh yeah.
Do you see that there?
Yeah.
So we know that like commercial gyms, for instance, right? They've got a lot of like really cool parts to them. You're not in charge of like the budget there, right? That's actually, I know that one's in the notes, so I'm gonna leave that one alone. But independent contractors, that is something we kind of breezed over pretty quickly when we were doing our notes. So independent contractors, who they are people who work as needed. You are not an employee, right? The pros of that are the fact that you have like a lot of control over like your identity and like who you want to be. Maybe you don't have to follow all of that club's traditional rules, but at the same time, like with that freedom comes instability. You don't know that you're going to be regularly scheduled to work every day because you're not an employee. You're going to work whenever you are told to, right? Like you're going to be hired like on a session to session basis. Most independent like the classic example of independent contracting is the relationship that you would have with a private client. So if you had just a friend who's like, hey, I'll pay you, this many dollars if you'll train me like a couple times a week at the park. You're an independent contractor for that person, right? You are working as needed. They don't have a contract with you if all of a sudden they are like, you know what, I'm done. Thanks for all the training, right? And they just feel that like that was it. Well, then, session over, like that's the instability that comes with being an independent contractor. Yeah, totally. No problem. See you, Maggie. So that's some of the disadvantages, right? You're not, advantages are you're not responsible for practically anything. That's the nice thing about being an independent contractor. You're really not responsible for the overhead costs, right? All of that should be provided for you. You're not responsible for scheduling out the clients. Like all that is done. This is where like we had an independent contractor at WellFit. We had all of us were like your kind of standard trainers, right? Like I was hired to work there as an employee like hourly, but we had one Zumba class a week, and it was better to hire him as an independent contractor so he would just show up and do the one thing. He made more per hour in that 1 hour than I ever did at WellFit, but he only got to work 1 hour, one time a week. So he had to drive all the way to Malibu to do this thing and then drive all the way back to West Hollywood, which is quite the trek, and that's why he got like a higher hourly rate, which is also something that usually happens to independent contractors. Usually you'll have a much higher hourly rate, again, at the cost of like you're going to have to pay more in taxes because the company doesn't have to pay taxes on you, so you have to pay both parts of your taxes. You are both the employee and the person, so that's sort of who an independent contractor is. You have very little responsibilities, but you also have very little instability. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
Did that help you find all the stuff we were looking for?
Yeah, that was really cool how you did that.
Yeah, I'm like trying not to like.
Invasive, but
I don't want to like.
to.
Yeah, I don't want to like just straight up say the answers or anything.
Yeah,
And that should be
appreciate
about
that.
it, honestly. Yeah. Okay. All right, guys. Well, that's all we got today. Hope everybody's having a good week so far. I'm gonna try and get in touch with Sochi. I know a lot of people have been asking, and things have been. We've been dark for a while, like
Yeah.
radio silence, you know. So I'm
Yeah.
gonna get in touch and see if I can figure out what's going on. But that'll about do it for today. I'll see everybody tomorrow. And Jay,
All
see you tomorrow.
right. See you tomorrow, brother.
Hi, everybody. I mean you and everybody watching. All right. See ya.